Rowe, co-founder of the Perk here. I am a leadership coach, a company culture consultant, and I am super excited to be here with you today to talk about my very favorite topic of all time, and that is organizational culture. What is it? Why is it important? And how do you actually build it? So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump on in. So what is culture really? Everyone thinks it's this big nebulous thing. It's so confusing. What is it? How do we actually build it? But honestly, it's not that confusing. The way that I define culture is it is your company's values and beliefs manifested in the behavior of every single person at your organization. So in other words, your culture is built by the daily behavior of your team. Break that down even further. Culture is behavior. Culture is not what you say it is. It's not what you write in your employee handbook. Your culture is what you and your team are doing on a daily basis. Culture is not something that can be built by one person or even by one team. Culture is something that has to be co-owned and actively built by every single person at your company. I like to compare it to an orchestra. Everyone on your team needs to be sitting in their seat, they need to have their instrument, and they need to be playing the same song in unison in order to create a beautiful symphony. There is no one sitting in the audience and watching the culture be built. Everyone is playing their part. Everyone is playing their instrument. The funny thing about culture is it just happens. Culture exists no matter what. If you put a group of people together, a culture is going to form. However, culture has an enormous impact on every single aspect of your business. So why wouldn't you be intentional about it? Spoiler alert, you should definitely be intentional about it. So while culture will just happen, building culture intentionally is a choice. And it's a choice that I want you to make. When you make the choice to build culture intentionally, it requires that you and your team step up, that you take an active role in deliberately building the culture that is right for your organization. There is no such thing as a perfect culture. It does not exist. So committing yourself and your company to proactively working on something that you know will never be perfect and that is constantly evolving is definitely not the easy thing to do. However, it is the right thing to do. It will not always be easy. It will not always be fun. Building a culture intentionally requires that you and your team are vulnerable and also resilient. To work on culture, you need to be passionate about growth and continuous improvement. You need to acknowledge that your culture is never going to be perfect, but that it will remain a focal point and it will always be worked on. You need to focus on continuous improvement over perfection. So that's what culture is and why it's important, but how do you actually build it? Our approach to building culture is different than you may experience elsewhere. And honestly, that's what makes it amazing. As we talked about earlier, culture is built by the behavior, by the actions that you and your team take. So then, in order to build the culture that's right for your organization, we help you define with tremendous clarity exactly what behaviors will drive your success. Then, once we have those behaviors, we systematically and consistently teach them to your team. We call these your core behaviors. These are the behaviors that, when practiced on a daily basis, bring your organization's values to life and drive your success. These are the behaviors that build your culture in an effective, sustainable, and high impact way. These are the behaviors that will help you become a high performing, truly unstoppable team. Core values are great, but core behaviors are better. Values can be abstract and mean different things to different people. Think about the values like respect or fun. Two different people can have completely different definitions of what those two words mean. And the way that they live those values can be completely different. So values are abstract. Behaviors, on the other hand, are clear. They're specific. They're easy to understand, teach, and provide feedback on. Let me give you an example. Here's a list of core values. These are values that you see at a lot of organizations: integrity, respect, honesty, passion, fun, customer first. These are all great words. But again, they're abstract. What exactly do they mean? Two different people on your team could interpret and define these same words in completely different ways. That's where core behaviors come in. Core behaviors are specific, they're clearer, they're easier to understand. Here's an example: assume positive intent. Assume people are kind, fair, and trying their best with the information they have available. Seek to understand before immediately judging or casting assumptions. Trust that the other person wants what's best for the team and the company. Come to the table with a positive attitude and an open mind. Let me give you another example of a core behavior. Do what you say you're going to do. Commit to doing something and follow through with it. Whether for a client, teammate, or yourself, make it happen. If you determine it can't be done, communicate ASAP so the team can pivot. Again, these are behaviors. They're clear. They're easy to understand. They're not abstract. When we work with you and your team to define your core behaviors, we talk about the fact that they are aspirational in nature. This is not necessarily what's been done in the past. However, we look at the future and we figure out, okay, what does success mean here? And then in order to get there, what are the behaviors that we need to be practicing on a daily basis? And those are your core behaviors. They are chosen because they are the behaviors that will lead to your success. Going forward, these are the behaviors that you can expect to see from your team and that they can expect to see from you. When it comes to your culture, your work is never finished. Culture is something that is constantly evolving. As new people join your team, as other people leave, as people develop and grow and change, it's always evolving. And it's never going to be perfect. Remember, perfect culture does not exist. Acknowledge that it will never be perfect, but that it will remain a focal point and will always be worked on. Remember, being intentional and building your culture intentionally and deliberately is not always the fun or easy thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. When it comes to your culture, you're not going to have all of the answers, and that's okay. Nobody does. Building culture is hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Let us help you define and build the culture that will ultimately lead your team and your company to success. Reach out to us anytime. My email is leah@choosetheperk.com, and I seriously cannot wait to talk to you.